What's a scary science fact that the public knows nothing about? 50% of insects have disappeared since 1970. Insect population is down 27% in the last 30 years, declining between 1 and 4% each year depending on the genus. Heart muscle cells don't reproduce much in adults, roughly 1% per year. If you have an infarction or other stressor that kills those cells, then your heart won't be able to grow new cells to replace the dead ones. This is why patients with diseases like heart failure end up needing a heart transplant. Trying to get this process to happen is a major goal for many cardiac researchers. Approximately 60% in some reports of the world's population have the parasite Toxoplasma gondii in their brain. For a long time it's thought to have been a benign presence, but recent statistical research shows that it may have an impact on things like levels of anger and rates of accidents and suicide. When gondii is on rats, it changes their behavior so that they find the smell of cat urine sexually appealing. So they find cats and get eaten. In the gut of the cat the parasite can reproduce. Trauma can cause structural changes to your brain. PTSD is literally an injury. When doing an autopsy they don't put the organs back where they belong. They are all stored in the belly. Anthrax spores can remain viable for decades in the soil or animal products such as dried or processed hides and wool. Scientists don't know exactly how acetaminophen works to relieve pain and reduce fever. They have an idea, but nothing for sure. But yet it's the most commonly used pain reliever in the world. I only recently learned that when you get sunburned, the burn isn't because of skin cell damage. The UV radiation damages the DNA. Then the skin cells decide to commit suicide and fall off so that the damaged DNA doesn't produce cancer. I'll never be mad at my skin peeling again. The United States has lost and never recovered at least 6 nuclear devices. Prions are terrifying. They're basically zombies at a protein level. They are misshapen in such a way that causes them to misshape other proteins. Normal methods of disinfection don't work. This makes researching them a very tricky matter, as while most cases involve eating infected meat, mishandling prion samples is all it takes. Tricky part is, there is no treatment either. Once they get in you, they are 100% fatal. It has been a while since I've studied them, so this picture may be incomplete, but I do know they are always fatal. If your dog swims in a lake after receiving a spot on flea treatment, it absolutely decimates the invertebrate population. A large dog swimming in 8 Olympic swimming pools worth of water soon after treatment will leach enough neurotoxin to kill 50% of the lake's invertebrate population within 48 hours. I say after, I mean relatively soon after, within say a day, to have an effect quite this devastating. The leaching does reduce over the month, but it's still there, and the effect of multiple dogs still allows for a terrible buildup of chemicals. DuPont knowingly infected over 90% of the American population with PFOAs, a harmful plastic that has a half-life of 20 years. Lawsuit is still ongoing, but no one seems to be bothered. Brain aneurysms can be completely unpredictable and can happen at any time in your life, no matter how healthy you are. A kid who I went to high school with at the age of 16 just did not wake up one morning and his cause of death was a brain aneurysm. Inside the permafrost around the world there is stored about twice the amount of CO2 we currently have in our atmosphere. That's why permafrost must stop melting. An asteroid passed the Earth in September that was about 40 to 90 meters in diameter, and we didn't see it until a day later, because it traveled towards us from the direction of the sun. It passed us at half the distance from the Earth to the moon. So many people will struggle with infertility. It's not talked about or really discussed in middle school or high school in health class. When it happens, it's such a shock to the families and they are completely unprepared. The numbers are going up as well. Statistical quarter pregnancies end in miscarriage, which is pretty high, but again, miscarriage isn't discussed. Before the vaccine, the number of people who have had HPV infection and have had at least one sexual partner, was 85% in females and 91% of males. By far the most common STI. The youngest persons who developed Alzheimer's were around 25 years old. One lady got diagnosed with it at 31 while pregnant. By the way, when you get the disease at like 65, it didn't suddenly begin. It has been creeping up and ravaging your brain for at least 20 years if not more. You just didn't realize it, because our brain is very good at compensating damages until it cannot. Basically, the day you lose yourself in the supermarket, it's too late. Your brain is mostly mush and there is so far nothing you can do. That means that if you are 40-60 years old and reading this, chances are that some of you already started to experience the onset of Alzheimer's brain degeneration. It's just not advanced enough for you to realize it. Have a nice day. Nutrition deficiencies such as iron, vitamin C have many symptoms that were uncovered in an experiment in residential school. They would have a class of indigenous children that would never get iron from foods or any intake. Another class would get the iron supplements, then compare for results. There is a naturally occurring thought in many humans named the call of the void where, without reason, humans see a way they could die and they wonder whether they should kill themselves, even if they have no real intention of doing so. There are alternative ways some proteins can form tertiary structures. These different structures make the protein unable to function. These alternate protein structures are infectious and incurable as they are so stable. If you get some in your blood, they will slowly convert your own proteins when making contact. They're called prions. Actually a sort of fruits completely frick with a shootload of prescription medications. I learned about ton 618 the other day. My facts here may be mildly incorrect. Feel free to Google. It's a black hole about 10.3 billion light years away, but we can still detect the massive amount of light bending around it. It's so large, they had to make a new category of black hole for it called ultramassive black holes. It's believed to be the largest thing in the universe. Its diameter is 14 times the diameter of Neptune's orbit. So it could fit our entire solar system in it 14 times across, side to side. If the black hole replaced our sun, we would be deleted. If it replaced the black hole that is currently at the center of the Milky Way, within 120 years the Milky Way would be deleted. This black hole doesn't swallow planets, it swallows entire galaxies. The idea of this thing freaks me the frick out. How easy it is to inadvertently seriously damage yourself with an unfortunate combination of ordinary supermarket products. Also, prions. Frick prions. If you're exposed to rabies and start to show symptoms, your chance of survival is virtually 0%. If my college biology professor wasn't completely misinformed, most humans have some form of parasite living inside them. Some variety of worm, etc. There are just creepy crawlies in our insides and we might never notice them. The one that came closest to giving me nightmares was hookworms. Although the thought that you could have heartworms kind of messed with me, too. Evidently, they are not just for dogs. Limnic eruptions. There are pockets of CO2 trapped under lakes all around the world that can be released at any time, creating an invisible tidal wave that kills everything in its path. Since it's heavier than air, you will just suddenly start choking and die. There's many unknown and forgotten diseases trapped in the permafrost and it's slowly, but surely melting away. There's been a few cases in Russia, while exploring for oil gas, I believe, of people dying of strange diseases that we have no idea how to treat, because they've basically been hidden there since before medicine even existed. Some could be contagious, we just know very little about it. Another Carrington event. The original Carrington event was in 1859, which was basically an intense geomagnetic storm that disrupted, knocked out telegrams, because that's all the technology there was to disrupt back then. Nowadays we use electricity for virtually everything. If it hit now, the effects would be like an EMP, but globally, there'd be no functional technology that involved electrics. In essence, losing all electrics would in turn stop communications, then logistics, and then fundamental infrastructure like food distribution, healthcare and utilities, other than electricity. That you should never use bleach to clean cat pee. The combination creates chlorine gas that is very toxic. There was a person who made a post one time that got hugely popular. This person was a chemical worker of some kind and went into detail about some of the nearly totally unknown, but insanely terrifying chemicals that exist. They ranged from terrifying to damn near apocalyptic. It was a super interesting read. I wouldn't know how to find it now, but maybe someone else would be able to. That post would really fit here. The German Nazi army consumed massive amounts of Pervitin, a brand name for literal meth, and the company producing Pervitin made the pills till the 1980s, and the armies used Pervitin for drills till then. The Nazis also put Pervitin in chocolates, calling it horsefrohen chocolate to ease the dreaded life of a stay-at-home mother, and so on. Eastern Germany still has a huge meth problem, which is a whole lot less surprising, knowing that it has been produced there legally up until fairly recently. Saccadic masking, a mechanism our eyes have that cuts off the processing of retinal images when it becomes blurred. Humans become effectively blind during a saccade.